So I agreed to never go north. So this year, my friend from Trinity, since we were third grade, so best friend, she lived in Texas. We drive all over and spent a week. We both went to the Eagles and we joined. Dear God. Yeah. But oh my God,
That's just some of those old places, because I have.
Morning, good afternoon. Could be morning.
Yeah. the picture.
Royalty.
dance.
Did you really?
Dance.
Yeah.
And they had to wear long skirts and have their, they never got their hair cut. They had to have little.
38. How old are you?
Oh, yeah, you can hear. I lived on 13 and Lincoln, and the Holy Rollers Church was a block, 2 blocks from my house. And my boyfriend.
I don't know about it. I really don't know about it.
So we can hear them sing all the time, all of the
I
time.
don't know about it.
But it's so.
Inside my back.
You know, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it became our.
I was talking to the friend in Phoenix, her restaurant. I saw you working out on the one.
Oh, you should. Yeah, well, I saw that like shit about it.
And hey,
You know, I took a picture of Zach and his girl. Responded to them, but it's
you know,
fucking
we
good.
were busy.
You're working hard.
And we were talking.
Yeah, I tried to do. The cell replicating. Just know that. Hello, how are you?
Those were simple,
Great
good days.
So I take my grandchildren on the Triton where my grandma lived, and then my mom got the house, and then I got it. You are, the clerk did, you are. And so I take my grandchildren, don't have the. So you want to plug.
Probably it's not intended.
All that. I don't know.
Oh, I need to, Richard.
Oh, we have.
I know it.
And I got started this on my leg. Oh, dear. Put it up on something.
Is it? Yeah.
Should have brought a little footstool back there, Devin. It's big. Oh.
Okay. Sliding like that. Yeah.
224. Yeah, so, well, good. Yeah, Dave's doing well.
No.
Busy. So we have oh my goodness. Yeah, you don't want to give it to a new baby.
Rory, leave the glasses clean. You're going first. Yeah. Oh. You're very welcome. This time to do your things exciting. It's a good input last time.
You can do long days at a time. Here we are. Science sheets over there. Usually.
Oh, for heaven's sake, look who's here.
Say what he said last Thursday at the meeting.
So you, this is the gentleman that owned that building that you're talking about. It's a brick. We owned it. He had it for many, many years. He asked me, you know, anything about it.
What's his name?
Yeah.
And they would let it go. That's because he would start talking about Nazis and what we want.
Yeah. So it was pretty. Sort of familiar with some of it.
Probably didn't sit with this.
Or
leave, we'll have to-
Oh,
Yeah. Well.
well, I stay around.
I'm
for
gonna
that.
tell them. there's-
Fireworks.
I don't have it written down. I'm just gonna connect them over to that. I figured. Sanders.
You don't even get to something. You're at.
The way I look at things is, like, if you come to me and say, like, Grace, you need to check your business there.
Are you happy now that you've gotten rid of your building?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I somewhat feel like I'm retired now.
Yeah. I can't remember your name.
Larry.
Larry Mark. Stop there about 4 times.
With the what?
Well, he won't know anything about that.
Because we lived in the law, 505, and we go to the Eagle, it was big. But it was from
Oh,
the
no.
city,
That's the city. Kept putting
water pipes or something.
water in for the sprinkler system. See the one to the north of the entrance for the building.
So what happened was when they dug that all up, they exposed it. I'm looking at bricks, different street. Oh, you saw.
Somebody told me I could come to sleep, but one day, one the next. But today they're all gone. And I will.
Okay, welcome, everybody. Have you take a seat. We'll go ahead and open up open public comment. Time is 6:30. Views expressed by individuals during public comment do not necessarily reflect the views of the city of Fremont, have not been verified for accuracy by the city. As a reminder, city council and staff are not permitted to respond to comments or questions during the public comment period in accordance with Fremont Municipal Code, section 2-103. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person and shall not contain topics included on this evening's agenda. So there's also comment cards in the back. If you are here and haven't signed in yet, the sign-up sheet is up front. We'll have Bert Murray. Please state your name and address.
You want to go first? Okay. Hello. Oh, there you go. Hello, my name is Bert Murray. Some of you might already know me. And anyway, I live at 1745 North Nye Avenue, Fremont, Nebraska. And I'm here as a concerned taxpayer. So anyway, I always like to tell little stories. This is who I am. But anyway, here about a year ago, I had an opportunity to have someone call me out to one of my job sites. Somebody I know for like 20 years. He said, hey, this is a courtesy call. He's the guy's a strictly business type guy, but we get along really well. He goes, you need to go visit your job site. And then I've always been that person. If somebody says, hey, you got a problem, well, if you want to stay in business anyway, so anyway, I went out there and met him the next week. I said, sure, no problem. I'll be there. So I go out there and see, I go, oh my gosh, the culture of our business on that particular job was horrible. I couldn't believe what was going on. So I had to have a really moment there of like, wow, I got to do something. I got to get this battleship turned around. And one thing that you guys, if you're in the business world or even maybe in your personal worlds, you can't turn around a battleship like that. How long does it take to turn around a battleship? 30 miles. So to change the culture, it's taken about a year or two, and finally I've gotten it done. So this brings me to my topic tonight. Like last Thursday night, a lady, not for profit, nobody's paying her. I don't even know who asked her to come here. And there was an article in the paper saying, hey, I research and expose porn on library websites. Well, I didn't know this lady. I didn't know anything about her. So we go there because, concerned citizen, that's all, taxpayer, that's all I am, nothing special. So we go there and the lady gives us a little tutorial on how to go to the Fremont Library website and go to porn sites. I'm like, what? The librarian says there's no porn on there. I'm sure it's not. She gets paid a lot of money to make sure this doesn't happen. So anyway, I just wanted to express to everyone here is like, if somebody tells you there's something wrong, you need to be front and center. I know, well, I don't run the library. I've just got this position here on the city council, whatever. I don't think there's one city council person there. One librarian, nobody. Well, if that's Bert Murray's business, I'm front center. I don't get it. We've got to change the culture here. It's time for a culture change.
It's been 3 minutes. So I'll
Okay.
ask you to wrap it up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rich Rader.
Good evening. Mayor Spellerberg, Council President Jensen, members of the City Council of Fremont, Nebraska. First thing I'd like to say, this is the first time I've been up here since 20 years ago. And thank you, quite frankly, for your service to our community. I know a little bit about what goes on here because I watch some of these on Tuesday nights every other week. I watch what happens in the paper because it's reported. And I want to say thank you for what you have to put up with. And just coming up here tonight, it was on my schedule. I didn't want to give up Tuesday night to leave my home and come up here to address this council, but I'm here. The issue that I want to bring forward is, quite frankly, a piece of paper that I've left at each one of your desks. There's a little issue that's going on. You'll hear more from other people, but Saturday night there was a party, I'll call it, but I guess it was some sort of a festival on the top floor of the downtown parking garage that got a little out of hand as the noise level became obnoxious. There's a lady here that is a witness to that, and it went on till after, at least till 2 o'clock. Along in that same line of thinking, this noise issue, quite frankly, you know where we live. I didn't leave my address here, but 1039 North Main. We are privy, I guess you could call it, to most of the excessive noises that go on in our town of the older Fremont, we'll call it. Trains are a big part of our feeling of being abused. Train horns come right up Main Street, a whole mile away, and it's consistent day and night quite often. Some train engineers seem to feel like they should blow the horn from full entering the city limits to leaving the city limits. Trucks going up and down Broad Street. I know there's an ordinance against running their Jake brakes, as they call it. And the police chief at one time, a couple of years ago, put in the newspaper that they were going to crack down on that. Well, that hasn't obviously happened, because I can tell you from where we live, I have counted truckers going down or up Broad Street in the 10th, 11th area, where they have shifted up to 12 times down. That's a lot. And it's really annoying. You can go into the next issue with airplanes. We have changed the pattern of flight out of our airport. It used to go, if you're going south because of the wind, you went south and you took off to the west. That was the pattern. Well, probably 10, 15 years ago, somebody figured, well, no, it'd be better if we could fly over the city, and what a wonderful view that would be. So they've changed the pattern. Now the FCC or FDC or ABC is who changed it in Washington. And now they take off south, come right over old Fremont, and buzzing every year for about 2 weeks. The flight instructors from Lincoln come up here to train the Civil Air Patrol. And for 2 weeks solid, those guys are buzzing one right after another over. And they're trying to play bombardier. Now, that's my comment.
It's been 3 minutes. So just
I will
ask you to
then-
wrap
Guess
it
what? I'll
up.
shut
So,
up.
no, just wrap it up. So,
Thank you for
no,
listening.
thank you.
Nancy? No.
My name is Deb Brunmeyer. I live in the loft, the 505 loft on the 4th floor, apartment 406. I own a house in San Antonio, Texas. I come up here 4 to 5 times a year and stay a month, 6 weeks, 2 months, depending on the weather in Texas. My concern is like the similar gentleman, the episode that occurred Saturday evening, this past Saturday. We get home from the Nebraska football game and there is music. I live on the 4th floor. The band faced my window. They had strobe lights this big in my bedroom window all night long. They had music in my bedroom window all night long. Unfortunately, I didn't appreciate it till 2 a.m. I didn't appreciate having to deal with the noise. And then second, I didn't appreciate the way we were treated by members of this committee. We called the police 3 times. They did go and investigate. They came back and said, oh yes, the noise is very loud. It's much too loud. It needs to be turned down, but we don't have the authority. We notified we called the president, Mr. President, or Mr. Mayor, or somebody at night and asked for a return call. Now, I understand at 2 a.m, nobody's up to get their answer machine, but we didn't get a call today, Sunday, we didn't get a call Monday, and we didn't get a call today. I don't appreciate taking time at 2 a.m. to call the mayor and nobody returns my call. Poor customer service. Next, we call the council member to complain. 2 o'clock in the morning, council member gets up, answers the phone. Gail and or whatever you name, Mark Jensen. He answers the phone.
No, you're not gonna get there and tell the truth, not tell the truth. It was before 11 when you called.
Supposed to
Okay.
respond.
Okay.
Yep.
And we called and he was very cordial in the beginning, but then he says, Dale, I have to work with these folks. Go fuck yourself.
Okay.
That's a council member.
Now, tell the conversation, what he said.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Mark,
my
Mark.
husband is very-
Ma'am, can I just ask you to we'll stand behind the podium?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I just walked.
It's all right. It's all right.
Very angry, because nobody listened. It was the profanity that got me. You could have told him that is the rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not supposed to respond.
Council should be respectful of the citizens that stay or live in this county, in this city. Number 3, there is no music allowance, how high they could go. So they could go any height they want. There was no restriction on their globe lights that streamed till 2. There was no control of that environment. They were very orderly, very contained, but they can't be downtown where you have people living full time. Most of our building is business students or residents that can't afford a house. They should have went to the city park. They could have went out to the ball diamonds or football field. I don't care where they go, but not across from an apartment building. I've been to every Hispanic restaurant on Main Street to see if they organized the event. Because even though you had an event, it was a public event. I could have went to it. You want to improve relations? It should have been publicized. It should have been on your weekly street map of activities for the month, all the way to the end of the year. It wasn't on that map.
It's- I'll have to ask you to wrap it up. It's been 3 minutes, so thank you.
The apartment that they were having and the street owners who have too, because they're in trouble and their business is affected.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nancy Instrom. I live at 224 East 11th Street. The same night they're talking about, we had listened a lot that night to the music. It was so loud. I thought maybe it was one of the neighbors. And so about 11 o'clock, Our TV was turned up. All the windows were shut in our house, and we have new windows, so that tells you they're pretty good. The volume on our TV was turned up to 45, and I still could not hear the TV because of the music outside. And so we shut it off and we were going to go to bed. Well, there's no sleeping at our house then. So I called the cop just to complain. He came out to talk to me and was very pleasant. He was very, very, agreeable and stuff. He told me he had been down there to observe. And he said, I'm going to be truthful. You're not going to like it, but there's nothing I can do. They have a permit. It is till 2 a.m. and they can play the music till 2 a.m. And I said, well, this can't happen again. We've lived in this house for 48 years. I've been through all the John C. Fremont days. The beer garden was always down under the parking lot. I've never, ever complained about that. The concerts in the park are, close to us. They play, we hear the music and it stops. This was just way beyond. His sergeant even come out to explain that there was just nothing they could do. He said, I will go back and check that permit to make sure that there isn't anything about the noise level or them stopping at an earlier time. But he said, I probably can't do anything. So I'm just here. I want you guys to know about it and something needs to be done. I don't want to see any more of that. The way that the cop explained to me was that since it was up on the roof, it was bouncing off all those tall buildings and just echoing right down Main Street. And that's why we were getting it so loud. There has to be a shut off time. I mean, even the fireworks stop at midnight. This was way too long. I don't care what kind of music it is. I'm not targeting a certain group, but you guys need to all know. So thank you for listening.
Larry Marvin.
Good evening. My name is Larry Marvin, 1945 Morningside Road, apartment 124. And I'm here on protecting children with sidewalks. I have heard the discussions of the city installing sidewalks along Jack Sutton Drive, west of Johnson Crossing and Middle School. Well, my neighbor's children get to go to Howard School. Yeah. And it's Howard Elementary School. The school, the city has a sidewalk alongside of Buck Park. Okay, that's west of the city, not the auditorium, but the power plant. Okay, and then we have the two railroad tracks, the communist one that you own, and then the Union Pacific. And when you come off of the sidewalk, you got weeds chest high for little children to walk through. And then when you get through the weeds, then you've got railroad tracks with no sidewalk. You have no sidewalk and the Union Pacific has no sidewalk. And so that needs to be brought up along with the Jack Sutton one. So let's go to Main Street on the south of the Fremont Tribune. The first set of tracks, one or two, belong to, I think, the ADM food plant, there it's got the grain elevator. They have two nice cement metal pads for the sidewalk to go across. And then where the old Chicago Northwestern Railroad was in the Union Pacific, that's blacktop. So you have sidewalk of some sort getting from the Tribune over to the Christensen lumberyard, the old lumberyard. And you can get to the building. Okay, the city of Fremont you can set an example to the Union Pacific to maybe you could buy the panels and have them put them on your railroad and theirs. So there could be a sidewalk, but you need to do public relations with that. To get their tracks by the panels, and maybe the Howard School Parent Teacher Association can raise funds for you if you need that. Just for your information, we have existing sidewalks from the railroad tracks all the way south to Morningside, past the treatment plant and the Dodge County Humane Society, clear across the street, and then west along Morningside. On the south side, there's a sidewalk all the way to where you turn into the Morningside or into the Deerfield. And then there's a sidewalk all the way clear over to Highway 8 by the old Highway 8. So there is existing sidewalk, except you have no sidewalk and the Union Pacific had no. So we need to do some public relations on that. And then I don't want you to use salvage wood on the new sidewalks like you did on the other one, because if you go over to the Johnson Road one where you did put the panel in, and I sent you a thank you note for doing that because of the nice creosote, black creosote, it looks excellent. But if you stand on the other side and you watch, those wood was all split up from old age. And if you stand over there, it looks like they're going to fall apart and there's chips off of them. And our snowplow hasn't gone over them to rip that off. It was off when you bought it. And it's like you bought it from a junkyard instead of from a supplier, and you didn't get metal. I'd like to know what a cement one costs, what a new wooden one cost versus a salvage one.
That's
And
been 3 minutes,
so
so
that's
thank you.
what I want you to be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan Martinez.
I've only got a few minutes, so I'll keep it concise and brief. My name is Dylan Martinez. I'm a born and raised Fremont resident. I graduated at Fremont High School, and I hold an associate's degree in business management. I'm going to be speaking over a variety of topics and can provide a transcript if you'd like to review my speech. Although I do have about a 30-page compilation of research that I've conducted and have posted on the Fremont, Nebraska discussions page that details where I found my findings. While my research is still ongoing and there are many topics that I'd like to get to, I've narrowed it down to a select topics, which I'll trace back to an overarching principle: ethics. For too long, corruption has run rampant through Dodge County. Those in power have done well to cover their tracks, hiding behind thinly veiled legal loopholes to justify their unethical behavior. It may appear on the surface that the citizens of our community don't understand the misconduct happening, but I do, and it's infuriating to say the least. I'm here to bring it to light. Millions of dollars wasted on unenforceable, impractical, illegal immigration law. Our second to last mayor, Donald Edwards, was right the night at the high school auditorium in July of 2008. He said that this was a federal matter and that it should be left to the federal government. Even the 200-page Judiciary Committee interim study report on immigration of 2008 came to the same conclusion. Federal law preempts most action in this area. We are a landlocked state as far from any foreign border as any state could be on all four sides, yet we've gone to extreme lengths to perpetrate and defend this law on the local level. Even Councilman Von Barron went on to record this year to say that our biggest challenger would be the federal government. I, for one, would very much like to see the memo of understanding that was necessary to use the SAVE database, as I could not find it publicly online. I would also like to see statistics on the number of illegal immigrants that this law has circumvented. If those basic statistics don't exist, then that continues to validate the incongruities of this law, and we need to conduct a research report immediately. It has been nearly 15 years since this law was enacted and about 8 years since we've been able to enforce it through the SAVE program. The time has passed and we should be able to see those statistics now. Moving on from the illegal immigration renter law discussion, we discover a string of unethical actions by past and present assessors such as Brittany King abusing her position for personal spending among a slew of other infractions released in the 2015 Nebraskan public audit. Ms. King resigned and served community service for her malpractice. Then there is our current assessor, Debbie Campbell. Starting off on her first day after replacing Ms. King in 2015, Ms. Campbell fired 5 employees according to the Fremont Tribune. Whether these firings were justified as cleaning out Ms. King's closet mess or not, it raises a red flag. Fast forward 5 years and Ms. Campbell has been whistleblown on for nepotism, among other misconduct, by the then 65-year-old subordinate Corellia Kotras in a 3 News Now article posted in 2019. According to Ms. Kotras, Campbell has been allegedly creating a hostile work environment in that 5-year span. Then according to Ms. Kotras, Cotrus's account without making public or internal openings available. She hired her daughter and son-in-law at higher wages than their successors, despite their lack of qualifications and experience. When 3 News Now investigators sought to confirm whether an Indeed.com ad was posted prior to reaching nepotism, she deflected. In particular, I find the letter of agreement employment that Ms. Cotrus provided 3 News Now both alarming and disturbing. This agreement is a red flag for unethical management and inherently hostile in nature. I can only hope that Ms. Campbell is not continuing to use this document compelling new employees to sign this agreement. The private sector may agree away with agreement of this wording, but as a public government position, a letter of this substance should be illegal to compel and enforce upon any employee. I would also like to note that Bob, who led the county's levy and property tax meeting last Thursday, went to bat for Ms. Campbell, defending her duties to the public, saying that she's gone to great lengths in service to its citizens. While taken into consideration,
Sir,
this
it's
does not,
been 3 minutes.
I'm wrapping up the last paragraph.
Okay.
While taken into consideration, this does not dismiss the use of legal loopholes to justify nepotism, nor does it dismiss the alarming agreement of employment. I would like to submit a copy of this agreement to the council and request that it be entered into official records at this time of the meeting. That's it, because I got a lot more to say, but we'll be back next month. So thank you very much.
We have about 5 minutes left. This is open public comment. If you just came, you have an opportunity to speak on any item that's not on the agenda. Please come up and sign in. There's also comment cards. Again, we got about 5 minutes left, so.
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. Before tonight, I had gotten wind of the fact that there may be some members of the public here relative to the discussion about the party noise on the Cabbage parking lot on the 23rd of September. And so I decided to take a quick look to see, because that would have required a special designated license, which you all would have approved. I was shocked actually to find that the council did approve 8 to 2 a.m. I don't recall, as a former council member, us ever approving a license that ran till 2 a.m. Even John C. Fremont days and the beer garden, whatever, it typically shuts off earlier. And we've now established downtown living that we didn't have before. So I looked it up, and interestingly, this was on the consent agenda on August 29th, item 7. It was not withdrawn for discussion, which means that the council didn't take up discussing the time limits associated with this. The public didn't come and didn't take it off the agenda to discuss, and perhaps they didn't know. If they don't read our agendas as was articulated, perhaps they didn't get notice and wouldn't have known. I wanted you to be aware that this is an item that was on the consent agenda. One of the things that I think is paramount about transparency in the community is to make sure that agenda items that need to have discussion, and this might have been one of those when they were going to be holding band concerts beyond midnight in a downtown location across from apartment dwellers. I just want to, encourage the council to take those kinds of things into consideration, especially for items that show up on consent agenda. They probably ought to at least be pulled and discussed when you see things asking for 2 a.m. Stop times. When you're in residential areas or apartment areas, downtown, et cetera. You certainly have done so in the past. I would encourage you to do it in the future, and perhaps these folks wouldn't be here tonight. Thank you.
That was Thursday.
We have 4 minutes left, and nobody else wishes to speak. May I speak?
We only have one opportunity per time. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
They were. Then the party was. It's understood.
Okay, time is 7 o'clock. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll go ahead and open up the Community Development Agency and call it to order. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the back wall next to the agendas. This time we'll have roll call.
Please vote for roll call. Eight members are present, Mayor.
Okay, item 1 on the agenda is a motion to consent to pledge and collateral assignment of TIF notes upon the request of the developer of record, Fremont Enterprises LLC.
Thank you, Mayor. Travis Jacott, City Attorney. This is brought before the CDA at the request of the developer and a financer for the developer. They're asking that the city accept an assignment of the right to receive TIF notes under this redevelopment agreement and pay them directly to the bank. This doesn't change the other terms or requirements of the redevelopment agreement. All it does is allows the city to forward those payments when due directly to the bank. They want it effective as of September 18th due to their financing agreement, which wouldn't make any difference for us. There's no payments are going to be due for a while. So I'll take any questions.
Questions for legal? Comments from the public on this item? Seeing no comments from the public, any additional comments from council? If there are none, I'd take a motion. Councilman Vaughn.
Motion to approve.
Councilman Sukram,
I will second that.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen,
Make the motion to adjourn.
Councilwoman Ganem,
Second,
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. I'll open up the city council regular meeting. Time is 7:02. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the back wall next to the agendas. This time we'll have roll call for the city council meeting.
Please vote for roll call. Eight council members are present, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next is mayor's comments. Tonight, I am pleased to present the September 2023 Service Awards. I'd like to start with Damian Hartung, 10 years of service. Damian has been with the city of Fremont as a fuel handler, started in 2013. Ann Nelson, 20 years of service, and has been with the city of Fremont as a utility office associate 2 since 2003. Tony Roll, 25 years of service. Tony started with the city of Fremont as a power plant operator 1 in 1998. Then he got promoted to power plant operator 2 in 2008. And now Tony has officially retired as of September 25th. And I believe he is here. Is Tony here? No? Okay. Next, we have Ed Bromeyer, 35 years of service. Ed has been with the city of Fremont as an instrument and control tech since 1988. And then finally, we have Shelley Holzerland, 40 years of service. Shelley started with the city of Fremont as a dispatcher in 1983. Then she got promoted to chief dispatcher in 2000. And finally, she was promoted to director of communications in 2012. I see Shelley back there. Come on up, accept your 40 years of service to the city of Fremont. Congratulations. Right. All right, that concludes my comments for tonight. We'll move on to item 1 is a motion to adopt the current agenda for the September 25th, 2023 regular meeting. Councilwoman Ganem,
So moved.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll second.
cast your votes on the agenda.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Next is appointments. Is the move to consent to the mayor's appointment of Rebecca Robertson to the Dangerous Animal Appeal Commission. Tonight, I'm pleased to present Rebecca Robertson to the Animal Appeals Commission. As you can see in the backup, she submitted a letter with her qualifications, licensed veterinarian technician, which we need that final skill set on the board. I'm really pleased that she's willing to step up and be a part of this board. So I would take any questions from the council on this appointment. If there are none, I'd take a motion. Councilman Sukram,
I'll make the motion.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to the consent agenda, all items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda by council or staff? Councilman Von Baron.
Given the discussion we just had, I think it would be appropriate to review item 8.
Councilwoman Ganem,
I would like to add number 9 and 12.
Councilman Vaughn,
I would like to add number 11, please, to be removed.
okay. Any other items from the city council or staff? Any items from the public to be removed? Okay. Seeing none, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda. Items 3 through 7, 10, 13 through 15. Councilman Jensen,
I will make that motion.
Councilman Sukram,
Oh, yeah.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 8 is a motion authorizing the special designated license local recommendation for an outdoor event at 1556 East Military Avenue for Midland University Homecoming Tailgate. Staff report.
I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this event if I can.
Councilman Von Baron.
Now, just given what we've heard, I was a little bit surprised. I was certainly one of those who approved it at the downtown event at the August meeting. Did I understand correctly that if we approve one of these normal noise ordinances, et cetera, do not apply? I was just curious why the police could not do anything about the noise levels, even though we had authorized the event.
I can, you'll have a discussion with the police department about that. I know there's like a, decibel limits with regards to construction work and things like that, but with regards to special events, I'm not aware of restrictions. I know it's not part of the agreement that is entered into with these entities to use the city properties.
I certainly have no bone pick with Midland on this, but I think it would be wise to at least understand that before we approve this.
Yeah, the special designated license doesn't grant any holder of it license to violate city code.
Okay, so there's nothing we could have done on the downtown event to enforce noise levels to give the neighbors some relief?
Not certain about that event, but for this event right here, if something does come up, that's before the council today, I'm certain city code could be enforced. Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay, okay, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go around circles. I don't understand why we didn't enforce it on this last event. So.
Yeah, I can tell you that.
I just suggest we look into that. Thank you.
Councilman Sukram.
I just want to make it clear on this item 8 that it's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments from the council on this item? Comments from the public on this item?
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. I too have an interest in this item in light of the discussion that was brought up in public comment and the fact that this again is a request, as Councilman Sukram and Von Baron have mentioned, said till 2 a.m. So at the football field, according to the schematics, this is on the east side in the parking lot area. So it's adjacent to east residential areas, and to the north are residential areas, unprotected really from any sound barrier or whatever that would be going on, because those are playing fields. So I would ask that you give due consideration this time as to whether or not you want to have partying going on till 2 a.m. in this area, or whether or not it's a license you would grant, but perhaps at a more restricted hour than 2 a.m. as you consider approval. Thank you.
I just want to be clear, this application is on October 21st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it's a 3-hour event before, it's a tailgate event before the game, I'm guessing. So
my misunderstanding. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make the motion to authorize license.
Councilman Vaughn.
I will second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 9 is a resolution 2023-229 authorizing a change order from Midwest Storage Solutions for library shelving.
I asked that this be pulled just for some clarification and more transparency, because I did have some questions about, did everyone get to rebid? And no, and there's a reason for that. And I've asked Laura to give the response.
Laura England Biggs, Library Director, Keene Memorial Library. When we did the initial bid, the Midwest Storage Solutions came in at $185,486.41. The next lowest bid was $270,209.79. So we took Midwest Storage Solutions. We went back, since we were under budget, and asked them to finish out the shelving, which came in at $252,532 total between the original bid and this change order. As you can see, that is still below the next lowest bid for the base shelving, which was 270,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council on this? If not, I would take a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Sukram?
I actually had a question. Was the change order number one? That's the one that came in at 257,532? Not 252, right?
The change order was for the $72,000 that's in the staff report.
For the change order total, but I mean, she said the total of the project was 252.
I misspoke.
It's 257,532.
My bifocals were working against me. It is 257. I
sure I heard that
apologize
right.
for the misstatement.
If no one has anything else, I'll make the motion.
Councilman Jensen,
Second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 11 is the resolution 2023-231 authorizing an agreement to increase the cost of software services with the Nebraska State Patrol for mapping and automatic vehicle locator software.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm Shelley Hoserlin, 911 Communications Director. The 911 Center currently uses the mock mapping software to track the sheriff's office deputies. We dispatch for both the city and the county, and the city police department has a separate mapping program that we have, but this is what the sheriff's office chooses to use. So we subscribe to their software in order to track the sheriff's office deputies on their patrols. The state patrol is increasing the cost going forward, $5 per user per year. And we currently have 10 dispatchers, so that would be a $50 increase for this upcoming year.
Councilman Vaughn.
So my question, you answered half of it already, was if the Fremont PD had some sort of automatic vehicle location system. It sounds like we do, but it's on a separate system.
Yes.
Is there advantages or disadvantages to that? And why wouldn't we be on the same system? And then further, why would this be a 50-50 split if our local PD is not participating?
The system that the police department uses is more, it's better, much better for the dispatch center. We maintain the database. This mock uses Google Maps. We use our own database of mapping, and it's integrated with the 911 system so that anyone who's on that one can also see the location of the 911 calls and things like that. We're able to keep track of other things. It's 50-50 because every expense is split either 35-65 or 50-50. So they pay 50% of the police departments, and we pay 50% of theirs because it's for the dispatch center.
Understood. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no other questions. I'd take a motion. Councilman Vaughn,
Motion to approve.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 12 is to receive the Keep Fremont Beautiful Annual Report. Councilwoman Ganem.
Yes, I have the privilege of participating with Keep Fremont Beautiful as the city's representative on that board. And we did a litter survey today, went all over the city, counting litter in certain areas. So it was a lot of fun, but oftentimes these reports get overlooked and not read through. So I'd asked Casey Vaughn if she would be able to just highlight for us. When I asked her, she said, "Oh, I can talk all day long about this." And I said, "Please don't," but so she'll keep it a little bit shorter.
Casey Vaughn, Executive Director at Keep Fremont Beautiful. I did say I would talk all day long until you put a camera in front of me, and then I might shorten it up a little bit. Thank you for your kind words, though, Sally. We do appreciate having you on our advisory board, and we do also appreciate the support that we get from the City of Fremont and the Department of Utilities. There is a common misconception that we are just a cleanup organization. However, we are so much more than that, as you can see from our annual report. Education is at the heart of our programming. So we do really focus on youth, teen, and adult environmental education in the form of litter prevention, waste reduction, recycling, proper household hazardous waste disposal. And in addition to that, we do offer some recycling opportunities for the Fremont and Dodge County area, as well as household hazardous waste disposal, just to name a few. We do take great pride in all of the different programming that we offer. And we are actually heading to the Keep Nebraska Beautiful conference later this week, where we will receive the gold level affiliate award for the state of Nebraska. And we recently received confirmation that we earned President Circle status for Keep America Beautiful in 2023. And those are two of the highest honors that you can get with these organizations. So we are really, really proud of our programming, and we love serving our community. We could not do it without your support and the support of all of our partners and community members. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council? All right. Thank you for that report. Congratulations on those honors. Take a motion to receive. Councilwoman Ganem.
I move to receive Keep Fremont Beautiful annual report.
Councilman Vaughn.
And I will second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to unfinished business is item 16, ordinance 5654 on behalf of Apple D Acres for a change of zone from R rural to LI light industrial on property generally described as tax lot 101, generally located at the northeast corner of Prairie Road and Judy Road, Dodge County, Nebraska. This would be for second reading.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Jennifer Jam, Planning Director. This is a request for a change of zone from R rural to LI light industrial. It is associated with a conditional use permit for self-storage. Normally you would see those come together. However, the applicant is still working on some of the engineering for that conditional use permit. We had hoped that it would be here either this week or at the following meeting, but it looks like it'll be the 31st of October before that engineering will be finished. The reason is some of the storage units that they're showing are contractor type shops, which would have restrooms in them. And so they're trying to figure out the best way to get water and sewer to them, whether it's well and septic or connecting to the city system. So what we would ask tonight would be that you would hold second reading, but then postpone the third and final reading until October 31st. And the applicant is here this evening if you have any additional questions for him.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Councilman Jensen?
I just wanted to ask if we just hold second reading, I mean, as long as this doesn't appear on the agenda for the meeting of the 31st, there's nothing else we have to do. Is that not correct?
It would be my preference if we had it on the agenda and continued it for third reading, but yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Comments from the public on this?
I'm Brian Weiss, representing Apple D Acres in this. And yeah, basically we are in process working with JEO on finishing the water and sewer to the property. And so there's some things to get figured out. And we had a conference call today. We're making progress, but it's just taken longer than we had hoped. So is there any questions?
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay. Seeing none, we take a motion to hold second reading if there's no other comments. Councilman Vaughn,
Motion to hold second reading.
Councilwoman Ganem,
Second,
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Have second reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending ordinance number 5427 as it pertains to the zoning map to rezone the property generally located at the northeast corner of Judy Road and Prairie Road, legally described as tax lot 101, located in the southwest quarter of section 2, township 17, north range east of the 6 p.m. Dodge County, Nebraska, from R rural to LI light industrial, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on second reading.
Okay, moving on to new business is item 17 is a motion to approve the Keene Memorial Library Policy Manual of staff report.
Good evening again, Laura England Biggs, Library Director, Keene Memorial Library. What you have before you is the result of months of work and sweat and editing and revision. I will not read the entire staff report to you. You've got it in front of you. The highlights include removal of all references to the American Library Association, the creation of a juvenile collection only and a juvenile and YA collection only library card for parents if they choose to opt in for their children to have access to a smaller portion of the collection. Some additional language clarifying our compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act or SEPA requirements. Some insertion of language regarding principles of guiding selection of materials for the professional library staff, and some clarifications under the challenges to library materials process. I'm here for any questions.
Okay. Questions? Councilman Vaughn.
Laura, it's my understanding that the Children's Internet Protection Act, it was essentially formulated and put into law at the federal level, maybe 1999. And there hasn't been any sort of substantial update to it since. Have you run into any difficulties in implementing an outdated policy where the internet and technology has taken such leaps and bounds compared to what they may have put into law so long ago?
I don't believe we have. Luckily, our IT department stays leaps and bounds ahead of what's happening and is cognizant of our requirements.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Ganem.
yes, there were a number of changes here in some legal recommendations. And I know that the library and library board has worked very diligently and in good faith to try to accommodate and certainly create a policy that maybe no side really appreciates, but that means we have some compromise going on with that. But I would like to have legal explain why the changes that was on the news today. If you could address those areas of change, the way it was old and how you changed it and why.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Councilmember Ganem. I'm Travis Jacott, City Attorney. I didn't see news reports from today, but from what we had discussed previously, specifically, we were looking at changes to section 15.3.1 under the specific selection criteria. And what the intention there, what the reasoning behind that is the line read that the library staff would screen juvenile titles with sexually explicit content. And it went on to list what some of that explicit content might entail. So the only change there was we struck that line and said materials may be reviewed by professional library staff for inappropriate topics, including but not limited to sexually explicit content. So the way I would equate it is as almost a rated R movie is rated R for multiple reasons, not just sexually explicit content, but gore, violence, other suggested themes that professional library staff may want to review and screen and remove from the selection. So that was the reason for that change, was really to empower our library staff have the ability to review not just sexually explicit material, but all sorts of different material that maybe need to reviewed and removed from the selection.
Okay. No, I understand that content can be certainly inappropriate for different age levels, and there's propaganda, certainly the violence and gore that could be included with that. So what you're saying is we in our hands if we kept the old way. And this way it actually gives more leeway so we can go beyond sexually explicit materials. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, that's one way to put it. Again, we're allowing the library staff to screen not just for sexually explicit material, but all sorts of material that, you know, the library staff would deem unnecessary for the library.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the council, questions at this point? Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, I've followed this process. I've been on all the board meetings, and as you know, I fairly enthusiastically supported this process after what we had been through a number of months ago. But I think there are several points that need to be made. These are observations, not so much criticism, as I think there have been some good changes made, but I think there's room for improvement. The American Library Association has obviously become one of the most controversial groups in the nation and is coming under fire from more and more states. We've removed the references, but if you really look at this, the policies and the basic procedures advocated by the ALA are still intact. A couple of statements that bother me are to the extent practical. When those words are inserted into a policy, they tend to dilute what it does. For example, to the extent practical, we are going to monitor internet content to protect our children. But Libyan overdrive filters are ineffective. They can be applied by a parent, but there is no password protection. There is nothing to say that they cannot be worked around. And the statement that obscene material harmful to minors and gambling sites are blocked from viewing all libraries, on library computers. I wasn't able to attend last Thursday night's meeting, but I did speak with the lady that presented it, and she simply got a guest card from the library, went into one of our own computers, and was able to access just about any adult site or that she cared to see. In fact, more than she did care to see. So I don't think our protection for our children is in place. As far as collection and development, this again, when you look at the recommendations, the followers, what they follow as far as reviews and journals and outside, it's almost all driven by the same policies that the ALA advocates. And yet, when the people of Fremont came to the board meetings and specifically asked for representation in being able to have some input on the selection policies, I don't recall even an answer ever being given. I don't even recall a no. It was just passed over. The final one that probably really bothers me is what I consider to be what we were doing to shut down the public voice. We've not only said the public cannot be involved in the selection process, but now we are silencing parental voices. There is a national movement to push parents out of the education process and much of the public arena. And what we've done with this policy, we have specifically stricken the word saying that we will support a parent's right to determine what their child sees and reads, we will respect that. So we have consciously said that we will no longer support the right of parents to screen their children's material. And I've been wrong on this number several times, but I finally did get it right. With the estimated number of books all books currently published worldwide, for every book that we have in this library, there are approximately 2,000 alternative books. And the fact that we continue to insist on selecting from the most contested books in America, the most contested books of the American Library Association, which America evidently deems the most offensive, We still reserve the right to select those. And when you look at the, if anyone dares to contest one of those, the book challenge procedure has gone from a relatively simple process to something that can take up to 3 months. Protests are lumped as one. So for example, if 20 to 30 people objected to a book, they would be lumped as one protest. There is no counting for public input. The library has doubled their time limit to respond to the public. The final decision, interestingly, has nothing to do with what the community would want. The final decision, as I read the policy, is based on how well that selection fits the library policy. It's the library policy that put that book there in the first place. And it's the library policy that becomes the measure of whether it will stay. And in my mind, I don't know that this was intentionally done, but I don't think there are too many other steps we could have taken to more effectively silence the voice of the public than what we've done in this document. Thank you.
Comments from council at this stage? Okay, go ahead.
No, just a couple. Internet protection. I don't think there's any internet that is totally free from some of our blocks. When we find out about the different programs that can be used, as you said, that lady had to know those programs to be able to get into our computers.
Let's
with the child's password. And she went through those. She didn't have to with special codes. She just typed in keywords and they took her to the sites.
Anybody that hasn't spoken at this point, we'll give you an opportunity before we go to public comment. Councilwoman Laura Lathrop.
As I'm reading this, it looks like it's kind of going to be up to the parents as to what cards they want their children to use. I think that is taking some steps in protecting the kids. And it is making the parents responsible for what content they want their children to see.
Councilman Jensen.
Yes, to that point, I would say, and I would be very happy to, I'd be very interested in seeing, as I understand, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, is that what was told happened as far as being able to access that. Our IT people tried to replicate and could not do it. So I would be very happy. I'd be very, very interested in seeing that done. This is a public library. It's not by show of hands. It's not by majority council. It's public library content should cast a very wide net to include everybody. And our children should be safe in our library. I don't think there's any question that they are safe in this library. As far as our internet connections go, we've got MGM couldn't protect itself from people getting into it. There's way, how much, what do you think can be done? And a lot of this content is available at a lot of other places besides our library. It's much easier to get at than it is in our library. I think this is a good fit. As far as lumping all into one, how much time do you think the library should spend looking 30 separate requests on the same book? And you neglected to say, besides it, if we vote to retain this, it's retained for 2 years. But if it's voted to remove it, it's also removed for 2 years without reconsideration. It cuts both ways. I think it's a good compromise.
Any other council member that hasn't spoken during this period that would like to? Okay. Open up to public comment on this item.
Larry Marvin of 1945 Morningside Road. I was at the Thursday evening meeting of the Win It Back people, and I support their policy of God-given rights and good government. And the woman that was there was a very nice woman, but I was not at the library when she went in, and I understood that she asked for a pass for a 12-year-old age. That's what I understood, but I wasn't there. And if the If the library person looked at a 65 or 68-year-old lady and didn't listen to the 12-year-old, they just wanted the pass, she might have gotten the wrong one. She might have gotten an adult one. So I suspect that she got the adult pass. And that's just my opinion. And then is Bert still here? No. Anyway, Bert silenced me. He said, "That's enough. That's enough." And disrupted me. And I have a big yellow streak down my back. And so there is, in social studies, we have the bully and the recipient from the bully. And then we have the audience or the spectators that watch. And it was pure silence. Pure silence. So it's a vicious thing. And I think that Mrs. Murray bragged that she was defeating our fundraising. We're trying to raise funds, and she's happy that she's helping defeat the fundraising. So I brought up the thing that we could pass an ordinance, or the people could carry petitions around like they did at Snyder, Nebraska, for merging their school. And if you have the petition go around and if you get enough people to sign it, that you want to borrow the money from the immigrant fund, you can borrow it. And if you put in there, you don't want to have to pay it back, then you don't have to pay it back if you get enough signatures. And that's a hidden secret that we forget about. But that's part of our public right for petition drives and that. So I support our library. And when someone silences me, it does not go good. It does not go down good with Larry Marvin. I'll tell you that.
Steve Ray, 1445 North Irving. Well, in section 8(1)(2), you're quoting, they're asking for Nebraska statutes, and I think they should start at 28,807 and give you the definition in there of what nudity and obscene material is. You kind of let that go. You just start below that. What the lawyer said about juvenile titles will be screened by professional libraries staff to avoid. And he said they took that out and made it may be. There's a big difference between may and will. Will means it will be done, and may means, well, we might do it and we might not. And also they took out the word avoid. Why didn't they still leave it in there? Materials will be reviewed by professional library staff for inappropriate topics to avoid and to make it avoidable, to use the word avoid in there yet. He didn't have to take that out. So he watered that way down from will be to just, well, we might and we might not, and we're not really doing it to avoid anything. So he watered that down quite a bit. There is a, in 15.3.1, there is a reference to the ALA about the most challenged books for at least 2 previous years. I don't know why you have to go by theirs, just because they've been challenged there, and why for 2 years. If it's challenged 1 year, why not 1 year? That's enough. And in 15.6.1, the material retained by the library, if it's retained by another request for requisition, will not be for the same title for 2 years. Well, if there's a lot of people don't like it and want to bring it up again, I don't see why you have to wait 2 years. And in 15.6, materials removed from the library, the title will not be reconsidered for repurchase for at least 2 years. Why would you even reconsider it? If it was so bad you couldn't do it for 2 years, why do you want to reconsider it again? That just does not make sense. And yes, the lady at the meeting the other night, she got a pass from the library, and she didn't have any special looking. She just went to the library site and went down and looked like leather. And that's a sidebar. And it took her right to some sites that you wouldn't want to read. And that pass was given by our library as a guest pass. And she asked for a child's, and I think she asked for an adult one later. And so that tells me that the library isn't very secure in their passes. Anybody can walk in and ask for a guest pass, and it's not like it says, oh, how to have sex or anything. It's just different titles, and you click on them and you'd be surprised at the material that it actually goes to. One of them she mentioned was in the men's advocate thing. She said there's a lot of stuff in there. It's like for men's health. You wouldn't expect the stuff that's in there to be in there. So really need to check that out before you pass this material. It doesn't look like, oops, you're not that interested in protecting the children really here. You're more interested in, I know most of you don't, you've already had your mind made up. You're done. You want to be done with this item. Well, the public's not really done with it, and you serve the people. And there's one particular person that's always saying, well, we've spent enough time on this. We need to be done with this item. Well, that's not the way you're elected to do. I don't care if it takes 5 years to do it. That's your job. You want to go out.
Scott Preston, 1717 East 12th Street. For anyone here in person or watching this online, I'm warning you now that some things I will read may be considered inappropriate, particularly for children. This is your chance to leave the room or mute the video. The following is an excerpt from Looking for Alaska by John Green, which we have a physical copy of in the young adult section of the library. As a reminder, the young adult section is intended for kids as young as age 13. She unbuttoned my pants and pulled my boxers down a little and pulled out my penis. Wow, she said. What? She looked up at me but didn't move, her face nanometers from my penis. It's weird. What do you mean weird? Just big, I guess. I could live with that type of weird. And then she wrapped her hand around it and put it into her mouth. In addition to this, the book also contains multiple passages with teenagers watching pornography, over 30 uses of the F word, and numerous other sections with characters discussing or engaging in sexual intercourse. And yet, I'm not going to waste my time to challenge this book based on the policy manual you're about to vote on. You see, the manual has a lot to say about what should be included in the collection, but it barely speaks about what is grounds for exclusion. Yes, there's some nebulous language about inappropriate topics, but it appears to be designed by our legal representation to create as much gray area and open it up to as much subjectivity as possible. It's disgusting and disgraceful and a slap in the face to those of us who have tried to honestly engage in the process and provide input to have a robust and specific policy that protects children. Adding what was added did not require removing what was removed. Council, if you're thinking that you'll vote yes on this policy, consider how you would feel if a flyer showed up in mailboxes with that passage in it next to your name and face with the words, I approved the policies that allow this in the teen section of the library. I support the librarians who put it there, and I want your taxpayer dollars to fund it. What would the people of Fremont think about that? Would you find it personally embarrassing? And would there be a political price to pay? That's even a question for you, Mr. Mayor. I know that unless there's a tie, you won't vote. But 2 people on this council are unelected appointees of yours. And whether you like it or not, your fingerprints are all over the decision that gets made here tonight. Regarding internet filtering, you said, rightly, we will do everything we can to make sure that our system is not allowing any minor to access things they shouldn't be accessing. So why should that be limited to the internet? This council needs to send a loud and clear message to the library that we're going to apply the same logic to physical books as well. You need to vote no on this, send it back and say we have to do better.
because our kids deserve to be protected from the predators in the publishing industry.
Sandra Murray, 1745 North Nye Avenue. Just to clarify before I say what I came to say, is when we're talking about these cards that are going to be such a godsend when they put those in place, if the selection criteria allows books with questionable content, these cards, it just nullifies the effectiveness of the restricted cards. Another point I'd like to make is, yes, I absolutely say publicly here, if we can't have a better library than this, if we can't protect children in a responsible way, I would hope that donors would not donate. When we have when we can be responsible for children's safety, then I'd say, yeah, I will hold a fundraiser myself. But if all the work that we've done of getting up and trying to explain to you over the last, 9 months, 10 months, has not affected your donors, then that's a sad case, because absolutely, I would like we who have spoken up to have affected the donations to the library. So in any case, if any of the council members had been at the Win It Back meeting last Thursday, they would have heard the speaker talk about the fact that she tested the system at Keene Memorial Library. She came in and used the library's computers, and it took her right to porn sites. Then she went to our library online ebook site from her computer at home, and it also took her to porn sites when searching kids' topics. The library continues to embrace the sexually explicit and pornographic materials currently in the library's children and youth area, and this new policy will only protect the library further from concerned citizens and parents who want to ask questions and desire protection for children. The library director and library advisory board wants the public to think that they have made positive changes when in fact they have done nothing but make things worse. They attempt to tie the hands of the taxpaying public that funds them, and our city lawyers who work on their behalf knowingly protect them and further their woke agenda to sexualize our children and prey on our families. I would ask that you, City Council, do not accept this policy, but have them go back to the drawing board, consider what the community wants, and try again.
Red Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. To start with, I'd like to apologize to the council for making a misrepresentation on an item removed from consent agenda this evening. My bad, sorry. With regards to this specific agenda item, I'd like to thank the council for taking public comment again on this item and for listening to many of the persuasive comments from your constituents tonight. I just want to add a few more comments to what they've already said. And quite honestly, I don't know if I could better any of what you've already heard. I thought they were quite persuasive. So as a formal council member, I would challenge you to recognize this. I know you all pledge to protect the health, safety, and well-being of this community. That's the top priority. It was for me when I served as a council member, and I know that it can and should be for you as well. It's the heart of the matter before you tonight. The mayor has recently reiterated his intention to protect our children in this community. Will you do the same by establishing and approving library policies that actually protect the community and the minds of the innocent children in this community? This version of the library's policy before you tonight attempts to address some of the issues that were needed. And there has been improvement. I'll grant you that, but it's just a start. The proposed policy still isn't fully resolved in the minds of the parents and the public. Adding to this fact is that legal made last minute edits to this version. And some of the steps that were negated, why those edits were essentially without explanation at the library board meeting. There was no effective debate at that meeting on these changes, and only 3 of the library board members were there to approve what they sent to you tonight, not a full board. I find that to be unfortunate, to say the least. There still needs to be other things that need to be done. That's why I don't think you're ready to be done tonight. Internet access should be filtered from all points of access when using the library's internet portal. They've asserted that they're doing that. I've asked repeatedly that they provide information that would allow me to assess whether they've done that through public records requests, as I've told you repeatedly. I've asked that they give public demonstrations for this so that you could see firsthand whether it works. It was said that nobody from council showed up at the Thursday meeting where this was demonstrated. I encourage the city to demonstrate this publicly rather than just assert that the filtering works, because apparently it does not. To think that you can say things like, I'll do the filtering myself when I order books if it's practical and convenient. That's absurd. Protecting our children is nothing that should be practical or convenient. It should be the top priority. Leaving out section of Nebraska law 28807. I don't know if it was accidental or purposeful, but that lists what the pornographic and obscenity and harmful to children state statutes are. You cite certain statutes in this policy, but negate to put in the definitions. Those definitions are also covered in the SIPA requirements. Why wouldn't they all be put as foundational so that if the librarian and their staff are using those as criteria, they would be relying on statutory definitions? Those are just some of the things that need to be done in that regard with regards to the development of the policy. Someone else mentioned Libyan overdrive. I feel strongly that all of these things should be filtered in for content in the same way. Omaha and Lincoln have special catalogs that they use to restrict certain things that the American Library Association and others would put in our libraries. We could and we should. I don't know what it costs, but we should be looking into it so that we can filter for all of that. And most importantly, when you are assessing books on complaint, you should be using the same exact criteria you now so theoretically propose to be putting books into the library in the first place. You have a whole host of books in the library today that under what's being proposed or discussed here by the parents for months would not be put in this library. You should be using that criteria in the assessment. It's not in this policy that you will. I think that's a drastic omission. As far as the complaints, I think it's inappropriate to limit the public to one complaint like every 3 months while you can't complain while something that you have is adjudicated. You might be reading other books and find others, and you should be able to put them forth as you find them. It shouldn't be up to the library board to say, well, I will or won't take it to hearing. If it's an appeal, they should take it up. Shouldn't be a choice. I could go on, but I won't. I just summarize by saying this. These and other issues raised by the citizens tonight speak loudly about where we are. We've made movement, but we're not there yet. You should continue this item for further discussion with the parents and the public so that we can address this effectively for the community. I encourage you to do that. Effective resolution of this is the utmost importance to both the library and the community that you all serve, and we need to get this policy right. If it takes a little longer, you should spend the time. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Brenda Ray, 1445 North Irving, Fremont, Nebraska. On the whole, I want to say that I agree with the people that have stepped up here and opposed this policy. I don't understand how the library card system helps at all when you're browsing through the library. Children are browsing through. You pull a book off the shelf. Maybe the parent wouldn't let the child take it home, but it's there for them to see. And I don't understand how that's going to help protect our children to the point that needs to be done. I also do disagree with this. Materials may be reviewed. The titles should be screened, and it was much more explicit as to what they were screened for. Sexually explicit content, including simulated, actual, animated. That should be left in there. I appreciate the fact that you also wanted it understood that meant language and violence by what you put in there. But some specifics need to be in there because we have too many people that don't seem to understand specifics. And avoiding putting this, avoiding that word is wrong also, because the staff needs to avoid getting those kind of books. And mainly, I just want to say, I do get nervous. I thank you, Paul Van Buren, for pushing this more and being at the different meetings. He had been with the lady from Nebraska for Founders Values before the Thursday night meeting. So he knew what she was able to do to some extent. She hadn't done it all. Anyway, my next comment, I just want to say this needs a lot of work to adhere to what I hope are much higher standards for the books purchased with our tax dollars and simply in the name of godly decency. I understand all this pornography, Mr. Jensen, you can get on the outside anywhere you want. And I can't do anything about it. But my tax dollars are supporting this library, and I don't want to support pornography sites in our library. I do think this needs a whole lot more work, so I hope you will not pass it. Thank you.
Additional comments from the public? Okay.
Name is Gene Schultz. I live at 2306 Gene Drive, Fremont. I'd just like to add some ideas to your thinking as time goes by with reference to the choice of materials in the library. Who among us were not around in 1963? That's 60 years ago. On January 10th, 1963, Congressman Albert S. Herlong Jr. of Florida read a list of 45 communist goals into the congressional record. The list comes from a book, The Naked Communist, 45 Goals to Destroy the United States of America by Cleon Skousen in 1958. I've picked just 3 of those goals to read tonight. Number 24, eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and violation of free speech and free press. Number 25, break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. Note, this is the Gramscian agenda of the long march through the institutions. Spelled out explicitly, it's the gradual takeover of the means of communication and then using those vehicles to corrupt the culture and weaken the will of the individual to resist. Number 26, present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. Note, today those few who still have the courage to advocate public morality are denounced and viciously attacked. Most Americans are entirely unaware regarding the motives behind this agenda. We had these 2 European communists whose ideas came to America in the 1920s. Karl Marx wasn't satisfied with the capitalist economy and wanted to provoke the working class to proletarian revolution that would depose capitalism, restructure social institutions in accordance with the accepted models of socialism, and thus begin the transition to a communist society. The Marxist Antonio Gramsci developed his cultural dominance theory to explain the social control structures of society. He said that the working class intellectuals must generate a working class ideology to counter the worldview of the ruling class. His revolution would be without guns, but by transforming society. With that in mind, I will ask, who is going to take their bait? Who is going to bite their hook that continues to lead us down the road to communism? Who will it be? Citizens? Library staff? City council people? Who will it be? We'll be watching. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, any comments from the city council? Councilman Ellis?
I've been watching this almost from afar a little bit. Just this has been going on for 10 months, 9 months. I've been involved a little bit here and there. But I wanted the process to figure itself out. And to be honest and frank, I'm really disappointed in what we've come up with as a city. I know there's been a lot of hard work put into this, but as a manager and an owner of a company, sometimes hard work doesn't equal good results. Sometimes you need to do smart work. Sometimes people will kill themselves with hard work and then expect a reward for it when you could have done the job so much smarter. And that's what I'm seeing here is, and I don't like to be downplay people's work towards an effort, but this has let the people of Fremont down. And it's in our laps right now, and we have to make a decision whether it's good enough. And frankly, it's not. There is compromise a little bit, but on one side of the fence, I see a lot more given and a lot less received on the other side. So it's just mind-boggling to me that we've got to this point and we're still so far divided. That there's no respect or support for the families. I use the term that Councilman Von Baron used, that they've removed that. We are a customer service center here in Fremont. We service the citizens of Fremont, and I really don't feel like they've been serviced tonight. And I really would encourage the city council to reevaluate where this is at, and send it back to the council, to the library board. This final revision was only voted by 3 of the library board members. That tells me that there's been an effort to just kind of weigh this thing out, and everyone will just get tired and we'll just simply get something together and kick it through. That's not the attitude we need to take. We need to get the right solution. And I was hoping that the library board, with all the input from the public, would come up with something, but this is not it. And so I'm encouraging us tonight to push this off, and for whether it takes another 3 months or another year, we've got to get this right for the kids. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ganem?
2 questions. One, I wondered if legal could describe why we took out the word avoid that particular statement. And then 2, if this were passed tonight, can we continue making some amendments? I'm not sure I would be prepared to make an amendment to it tonight, but can we bring it back to make an amendment?
Yeah, thank you. The term avoid that was included in there, I haven't seen that put into any policy in the past. I think that's a difficult word for our personnel to have to interpret what avoid means. So the revision really, like I said, empowers the personnel in the library to properly screen the material that they deem insufficient. As far as the second question was, can this be brought back again? This could be considered at any time. We can make amendment. It's a city policy, so it can be revised upon request.
Well, thank you. So if we passed it tonight, it would give them a framework from which to work, and yet we can still look down the line to make some amendments, further improvements. Is that correct?
Certainly, yes.
And in fact, I think that was part of the library's board's choice was in order to get the, am I right with this, Laura, that in order to get the juvenile cards in place, where you can only get a juvenile card or the juvenile and YA, we needed this part of the policy to pass, or this policy to pass, so that could be in effect. So the woman that said she had asked for a 12-year-old card, today a 12-year-old card is the same as an adult card, because there is no difference, because the policy's not been put into place until it has council approval. And so that's one of the reasons why you have it in front of you, is so that we can at least get that card process in place. And one thing I want to comment on, that we had two council members that talked about the difference between the words support and respect. And I need to fess up to, in our very early conversations, because I've been sitting at the library board meetings and these meetings and listening to what the public has asked. And I'm the one that suggested the change from support to respect, because I thought that was a higher standard. In my mind, that was a higher standard, because we are trying our very best to, frankly, both support and respect the views and the rights of the parents. So, you know, and interestingly, Councilmember Von Baron argued about don't change it. And yet Councilmember Ellis understood that respect was a good term to use. So as we're going through this process, I guess I would ask for that much grace for everyone involved, because we are trying to put something together that I think maybe Councilmember Ganem mentioned is equally appealing or unappealing to both sides, means you have a good compromise. That's what we're working toward, and we are listening and trying to get there. I respect what legal has provided counsel to the city, because let's not forget as we go through this that all of these parameters and all of these guardrails that we're putting around the library, that you can do this and you shall do this and you will do this, all of those kinds of things box us in and open us up to potential lawsuits if we're not careful with how our policies are written. And that's my advice. I haven't talked to Travis about that, but just listening to why they made changes in word choice, it has a lot to do with protecting the city, and that too is the city council's job. Thank you.
Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment, but the only way to totally protect yourself as a city is to write into so many contingencies that you can't be held responsible for anything. And frankly, that's largely what this document does. I think that's one of my big problems with it. Are there some good pieces? Yes, there are. But the reason that I encouraged that lady to come public with what she was doing, I had seen a few of her screenshots, but I'd also seen the library policy saying that things like that could not be accessed specifically on the computer system. And frankly, I expect her to fail. I did not believe she could do it, because we expressly say that things like that are inaccessible on library computers. But what she ended up doing was showing that in fact is not the case. The simple fact here is that every time we have come back to look at what this policy actually does, we find that it does less than it says it does. And I understand it's complicated, it's convoluted, but over the last few months, we've all been shocked by some of the books. I mean, just some of the things, excerpts that were read tonight, that goes far beyond education. There is no excuse for content like that at a public library. That is not educational. And since the board meeting, and obviously now we've seen the access to pornography that's allowed. And yet it just seems like we keep lowering the bar. We keep writing contingencies that so that we aren't putting ourselves out to be exposed, But that's the exact nature of taking a position and taking a stand. The legal changes actually appear to have weakened this policy from where it was originally. I was thinking about this week. The simplest thing that finally dawned on me that every one of us as councilmen, probably on a weekly basis almost, gets a call that says, my neighbor's yard is a mess. There's a dog barking down the street. People are speeding on my street. We need a stop sign. Need to get rid of a stop sign. Why doesn't the city mow more? Petty things. And do you know the reason that we don't do anything about most of those? Because those are exceptions. Speeding is a community standard. So are stop signs. Mowing is a community standard. Speeding, we have, my point is, we have community standards for everything that we do in this city. Our city is governed. If we did not, honoring every one of those requests would simply lead to chaos. And yet we'd have no minimum standards here. That's really I guess my concern as I've thought about it. The library is the one entity in this city that does not have standards set by the community. Our standards, by and large, have been set by outside groups and personal preference. And I understand under the guise of intellectual freedom, unfortunately, that also translates to anything goes. And that's what this has become. I'm just concerned that if we keep trying to just serve the lowest common denominators in our community, we're not going to serve anybody, and our children are going to have access to things that they should never see. And I don't mean to be facetious, but the simple fact is that we have higher standards for keep Fremont beautiful and animal control than we do for our public library. We have community measures for each of those. I'm serious about that. We have community measures for each one of those, and yet there is no community measure in the library. It's entirely subjective. It's entirely driven. The ALA policies and standards and the measurements and things they use are still in place. So I'm asking the same thing. If we simply need a couple of pieces of this, let's pass the pieces, because the nature of these things is once passed, they will never be revisited. If this is a good faith effort to actually get the pieces needed, I'm asking the council to pass the pieces needed, but let's go back, leave the rest of the policy where it is, open to public comment. Let's keep working on it in good faith. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Councilman Vaughn?
So I have to ask rhetorically, what was different 10 months ago? Why is this all of a sudden the big giant issue that it has become? And I believe I have some sort of an answer to that. And that the reason is it's the hot button topic issue of the moment by certain subsets of political parties. These folks are on the radio. I've listened to them, that they advocate for folks to go out to their local libraries and do exactly this. There's a nationwide push for this kind of thing to happen. And something else that needs to be stated is the concept of a vocal minority. We have heard the same people come and state the same things, same stance, same people, same arguments over and over and over again. But we also have emails from other constituents, and they're just as numerous and just as fervent as some of you folks are. And I'm not saying one group is entirely right or wrong, but there are a lot of people who feel that this is the opposite way. And so we just need to consider that. The library has made, in my estimation, a good faith effort to try to move in some direction. And we've already gotten the answer that if we need to make further changes, we can do so. We're trying to address the issue as best as we know how. This is a bit of uncharted territory here, because like I said, this is a new push from certain political people. And I've said this before, But I do have two children under the age of 12. We've been going to the Keene Memorial Public Library since they were, before they could even read. We have yet to be accosted by any book, any material. And it's all about the parental guidance. You know, somebody had mentioned kind of offhand, maybe related to this, about a nationwide effort to pawn off parenting duties in an effort to potentially sexualize our children. I can't wrap my head around how that's not contradictory. So if we have this nationwide effort by these dark forces to do this to our children, step up, be parents, guide your parents or guide your children. Look at what they're checking out or viewing at the library. Do your due diligence as parents. Thank you.
Councilman Jensen.
Yes, I'll echo the comments from Councilman Vaughn. I mean, yes, things are different with our public library because, as I stated before, public library, the content must cast a very wide net. It doesn't just merely control the majority standards within the community. We've got to cast a wide net. It's supposed to be for everybody. And yes, we need to have our children safe. And I'm with you. I do not believe that our children are anything but safe they are safe on our public library, beyond safe. And I would agree. I wouldn't even say it's really that much of an issue. It's, as you stated, it's the exact same 8-10 people that are pushing this issue. And as far as what emails I've gotten beyond this, it's all on the other side, and it's more than 10-1 the other way. It's not an even split by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know who else wants to speak to this, but if anybody else wants, if we're done speaking on this, I'll make the motion to approve this policy.
Councilman Dinkins.
Just one clarification. I thought I had heard it's just constituent mentioned something about the obscenity statute was removed. It was not removed. It was just moved up further in the paragraph. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Okay. There, any other council member that wants to speak that hasn't at this point? Okay. There's a motion on the floor to approve. Councilwoman Ganem.
Motion.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 5-3, Mayor.
Take a motion to adjourn. Councilman Jensen.
Motion to adjourn.
Councilman Vaughn.
Second.
Cast your votes.
Motion to adjourn carries 8-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody. Jensen. Yeah.